Okay, so when I try to explain in simplest terms this my perception of God, I think about this huge ocean. And an ocean is made up of water. I mean, mostly water. Of course, there's other things that are in there, like fish and plants and sand in the bottom and darkness and light and all of these other things that participate in the ocean, but basically it is this large body of H2O water. And when we see a large body of water, whether it's a glass of water, like I've got right here, or whether it's a large body, a lake, a pond, a stream, a swamp, a ocean, all of it, no matter where you see it, is just water, H2O. So it's amazing to me sometimes when we look at it, we get confused. If I see a glass of water, we think that it's different than the water, the same water that you may see in an ocean or swamp. Um, when we look at water in a swimming pool, we may not relate it to water that we flush down our toilet. We may see it differently, but it's all still the same H2O. It's the same when we freeze it in an ice cube and we cool off our water in our glass. It's still H2O, but it's in solid form. When we maybe take an eye drop and drop a drop of water, we may see a little drop of water sitting on our desk or on the back of our hand or someplace and see a small, minute drop of H2O. That drop of H2O, no matter where it appears, whether it's in the ocean, the glass, the toilet, a swimming pool, wherever it appears, it is still the same H2O. What's amazing is that that small drop of water might have given itself a name and named itself Sandra. And Sandra, that drop of H2O, may get confused thinking that she is something different than that in the glass, but still it's the same H2O. You know, she may get confused when you pour her into the ocean, drop her into the ocean, and she still want to say, damn it, I'm Sandra. But really, it's part of the larger H2O. So just because you've taken a drop and that drop has, and it knows itself by its edges, it knows itself to be Sandra. It's thinking, I am Sandra, damn it, I am Sandra, I am Sandra. But it's still that H2O is still part of something much more larger, something greater. And so, because it wants to perceive itself as having boundaries, still saying, I'm Sandra, damn it, it's really just H2O. So, as I think about this in terms of what we go through in life, all of us, our ego self wants to name ourselves, our little drop of who we are. We want to name ourselves Lynn, or we want to name ourselves Regis, or we want to name ourselves whatever, Larry, or Melinda, or whoever. We want to name ourselves and claim our boundaries and say, this is who I am, darn it. And yet and still, when we recognize the truth of it is that no matter what, we're still part of that larger body of God. Just like that drop of H2O is still part of that larger thing called the ocean. Just because it now recognizes its own boundaries doesn't mean that what it is in essence has changed. And so it's so funny as I think about it. I think about all the ways that water changes throughout its maybe lifetime. I don't know that a drop of water grows older, but it does sometimes turn into precipitation. Or, my brother, when I asked him, how is it outside today when I was in the hospital, he kept saying it's so muggy outside. That muggy is just what? Moisture in the air. It's water that's turned to steam. That steam rises up and it gets and it turns into a cloud. Then it rains down as raindrops, freshening and refreshing everything. So whether it's refreshing the ocean, refreshing your swimming pool, or refreshing a swamp, it's still H2O. I mean, it's the simplest forms. You are still God. No matter how you look at it, you are still part of that one whole, and no matter how you try to name yourself, how you proclaim yourself, you're still part of that oneness that is God. So I love it when we start to get a perspective of just simply from, looking at something as simple as H2O. I mean, everything, if you notice, everything in this universe follows the exact same pattern, that the whole can be broken down into smaller parts and smaller still. No matter what it is made up of smaller parts, not necessarily negating that it's the part of the whole, but simply that it has boundaries, borders, and it can identify itself as a cell or an atom or something, whatever is the smallest perceivable thing that you can break down to, it still thinks it is itself, and yet it takes part in a wholeness that it may know nothing of, but does not negate the fact that it is still a part of what it is. So when I think about that, I kept thinking to myself, like, wow, I know, and as much as I've used that analogy over the years to talk about it, and I still talk about it from the sense of, the solid form of water and being ice, or the steam, or the rain, or whether, sometimes we get people who are like, and I might have talked about this before, I don't know, because I've talked about it so many times over the years, but we get people who believe in the race consciousness, people who get caught up in fear. We get people who just don't want to change or refuse to flow or to grow. That, it's kind of like the equivalent of swamp water. You know how sometimes with a swamp and it, is just there and it doesn't have an inlet or an outlet, is just there. And sometimes you'll see things that grow in it that you just don't want on you. Sometimes it'll start to smell. Sometimes it'll smell like it's rotting. Sometimes it'll grow things, just all kind of germs and bacteria and leeches and all kind of stuff that just you don't want to be a part of. Other times you may see a stream, a babbling brook that is just so peaceful and wonderful and serene. You can see clear through the bottom, and you see little fish maybe sometimes even living off of there, and you know that it's safe to drink because you hear it babbling over rocks that cleanse it and keep it nourished. Sometimes you see a river as it rushes by, and you know that that river has been to places that you can only imagine, and that river, because of its rushing waves, that it has the ability to cut stones and cut a path no matter where it goes. I mean, and then other times you see other bodies of water that just seem like they are just in their allness. You see the power of it. You see the power, and you know the power of it. Even though in itself, just as a little drop, you may not recognize the power or the truth about yourself. But it doesn't take away from that the true essence of what you are is caught up in the whole entirety of what it is that you may not perceive because you're so busy looking at your borders thinking, I'm still Sandra, damn it, that kind of thing. So as I was thinking about that, I was thinking to myself, like, how great it is when we recognize that we take part in something that is so great and so awesome that we couldn't even possibly perceive it. And so when you do get a glimpse of the magnitude, the to what your truth is, of where you are, then it becomes this thing of, let me step back into my allness and know from that perspective what's happening in my life. Let me know myself differently. Let me interact with all the other drops around me differently. Now, here's the funny thing, because there's this thing that on the level of God, on God's level, God is not sitting there like the ocean wouldn't be sitting there thinking like, oh, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drops, 4 drops, 5. It's not sitting there looking at us like we're a bunch of drops. The ocean knows only itself. It knows only its perfection. It knows only its allness. It knows only its power. It knows only what it is. It doesn't sit there and get caught up in you thinking to yourself like, oh, as a drop, I'm evaporating. Or I'm getting carried off and caught up in this wave that I don't want to be in. Or it doesn't get caught up in this swamp, or this pond is not quite big enough for me. It's not quite rich enough in nutrients for me. It just knows itself to be as it is. And so as you may be sitting there criticizing yourself, thinking that you're not quite all of what you ought to be, the ocean, the whole, the entirety, or even God doesn't know anything about your little worries or your little concerns. It simply is what it is. And if it got caught up in your little concerns, the course tells us, if God got caught up in your ideas of you, then God wouldn't be God. I mean, it necessarily has to see you as perfect as it is and not get caught up in your drama. So when you're sitting there and you're praying and you're asking your prayers, oh, please give me more of me, or please make me better, or please add on to me this or add on to me that. God can't agree with that crap. God can't agree with your ideas of your smallness, because to God, it simply is. And you, if you knew the truth about yourself, you would know what simply is. And in that knowing, be corrected in your ideas about yourself. So let us all just kind of like back up. I love when Star Trek said, you talking bags of mostly water. We don't even know that we're talking bags of mostly water. We think that we're something else. We think that we're not part of the wholeness or part of this, the allness of God. Oh, that makes me want to read a book to y'all. Let me see if it's right here in I'm in my office and I've got books all around me, and it reminded me of a story that I might want to read to you. And as I look around, I don't see the book right here at hand, but it's okay. But you know what the other thing is for some reason, I'll tell you guys how limiting we are on ourselves by simply telling you how limiting I am on myself. So I sit here at this computer and I talk to you. And sure enough, I've got a webcam in front of me. And that webcam, it doesn't, it has face show, I think it follows my face. So it adjusts and readjusts as I move in and out. So on Ustream, you might see it focus and refocus and all that stuff, and see how messy my office is behind me. But if I'm on Ustream, I'm on Ustream and you're looking at me there, and the frame may be quite small. Okay, I don't know. But then the other part is that I'm talking on Paltalk. And over Paltalk, I'm using a microphone. And on this microphone, I have got what seems to be like 8 feet of cord, and yet I feel like I am tethered to this computer, and I can't get up to even look for a book or to drink a glass of water, because I feel as though I'm tethered simply because I have a cord hooked up. Now, the truth of the matter is that there is nothing holding me but my idea that I can't move. Just like there is nothing holding you but your ideas about it. There is nothing holding you back from your allness, expressing and knowing who and what you are, except for your ideas. And if we allow our ideas to keep us tethered, then it is not, it says, I think that in the course, what does it say? That you are your own jailer. You are the jailed and the jailer. I don't think that's how it says it. That you are the something. You are the master of your own enslavement. I don't think that that's how it says it, but I know that it's something like that, because I love that little quote. So I'm just getting up out of my chair. I'm moving out here, and I'm going to look and see if I see this little book right quick. And not jumping out at me yet. But I'm expecting it to jump out at me at any moment because I could have sworn I had two copies of that book. Let's see. And isn't it funny how the very book that you want to read out of seems to escape your grasp when you want it most? I don't know what it is about things that when you actually go to look for them, they tend to hide from you because I guess they maybe have the perception that you don't need to read me anyway. You're doing just fine without reading somebody else's words. And so it is hiding from me right now. I love stories, though. Stories are just these little juicy nuggets of information that seem to add clarity and structure to things that are being said. And so anytime I can think of a story or a story pops into mind, I want to share it as opposed to not sharing it. So I am not seeing this little book anywhere. Isn't that amazing? I'm not seeing the book. And so it's actually a green book. And so it should actually jump out at me. So let me go on with what I'm talking about until I find my book. Now, could you imagine that there are some lessons in life that you need to learn, that I need to learn? I always know that there are lessons for me because this is a course. I'm I'm living a course. I'm walking a course. I am learning a course. And so, as part of my learning, that book is really that book is really not here. And so, a part of me learning my course means that sometimes there is required of me adjustments to make. Now, I told you I have had people who are very proud of the fact that they feel as though they have changed very little throughout their lives. They almost brag on the idea that somehow they get a chance to stay exactly the same as they've always been. Now, if we are truly living life and letting life live through us, then we recognize that there is a need, a necessity for our growth. Now, that is not to say that, um, so while we're in bodies, while we are carnate, while we are in these things, until we have truly gotten to the atonement, the recognition of our truth, until we've actually got there, there are always going to be steps that we take that move us closer towards this awareness of our allness, of this fullness of who we are, the truth about us. So if you know that you are part of the ocean, if the truth about you is that you're part of the ocean and not the single drop that you thought you were, until you get to the point where you're at that total peace with that oneness and in that oneness and flowing with the ocean as it flows, until you get to that point, there will always be something that'll be knocking up against those edges trying to say that you are part of something bigger. So you guys know what I want to read to you, don't you? You know that I want to read to you out of that album. What is that guy's name? Is it Mike Alba or Alba? It's called Tuesdays with Maury. And I keep looking for that book because there's such a cute story in there. And I'll tell you the story as best I can without finding the book. I think it's just so much richer when I find the book to read it in his words. But I'll tell you the story. Um, Once upon a time, there was this little wave, and the wave was bobbing along, and the wave is just bobbing along on on this ocean. It's just bobbing and bobbing in the sunshine, and all the other little waves are just bobbing along, bobbing along, bobbing along, and it's just enjoying itself. And so all of a sudden, something catches this wave's eye, and in the distance, it sees that it is crashing into the shore. That other waves are starting to crash into the shore. And then all of a sudden, the wave starts to panic. The little wave starts to panic. And he's like, oh my God, oh my God. And he's trying to stop himself, trying to stop the flow. He's trying to stop the motion of the ocean. And so the waves that are behind him are looking at him like, what's wrong with you? And he was like, oh no. He was like, look, the waves are crashing into the shore. We're going to crash. We're all going to crash. We'll be no more. And so the wave was he's looking at this wave like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? He was like, you don't understand. We're about to be annihilated. We're going to crash into the shore. And another wave turns and he looks at him and he says, oh, he was like, don't get confused. He was like, you're not a wave. You're part of the ocean. You're part of the ocean. And so it becomes this thing once we identify ourselves and is this one entity in our boundaries and our shells of what we think we are. We think that somehow we'll meet our demise, our end will then somehow come, at some point. But when you realize that you're not a wave, that you're part of the ocean, you're part of something so much bigger, then you stop the panicking. But now, if we came here, if we took on these bodies, if we're in this space because we need to learn something, that we need to learn that we're not a wave, we're not a drop, we're not an ice cube, we're part of something bigger, part of the ocean. If that's what we're here to learn, until we really get it, until we feel that experience of letting go of the boundaries that we think define us, we'll always have room for growth. We'll always be confronted with issues that challenge us to lose this sense of self, this ego self, and expand into something more. Our expanse will always be challenged to that. We'll always be growing towards that. And so here's the thing. Things happen to you sometimes that cause you to grow. It's almost as if somebody takes that water that you thought you were, or that ice cube that you thought you were, and puts you in a pot, turns on the heat, and applies something that you're supposed to grow from. Now, it's amazing because I'm sure, like me, you probably know people who absolutely want to refuse to grow. I mean, they're sitting there and they say, oh my God, I feel the water, I feel the heat, I'm starting to boil, I feel parts of me evaporating, and they're really thrown into the fire pan of life, or the fry pan of life, and all this sizzle. And sometimes you think when they come out on the other side that they will have truly learned something, will truly have grown through something. And yet and still people revert back to their smallness or even smallerness rather than grow into or expand into the possibilities. Because now that they've seen part of themselves as they bubbled up and all this, the heat applies and changes the molecular structure. You know that when I don't know where you are, but when something is wrong, sometimes we get tainted, right? Say, for instance, if you identified yourself like I'm identifying water and saying that part of what we are, this analogy of water. If I put you in a glass, a clear glass, and a pure glass, you may be just perfectly fine. That may be your exact expression. But sometimes I may pour a little bit of Kool-Aid in here without, without the sugar. Sometimes there's a little dirt in the water. Sometimes things happen in our lives that color our perspective so that we're not that pure H2O that we were created to be. Like God, we can create And what we create is our creation. It doesn't necessarily continue on, right? So if we have then created something, if I create muddy water, dirty water, if I create colored water, or if I create something muckety muck, or go down there and swamp water because it's sat far too long, it's lost all of its zest and its zeal, things within it start to die off or whatever because it's not being replenished, or whatever have you, it's not being oxygenated. I don't know. Any number of things can happen so that water doesn't have the allness or the possibilities of being all that it can be because of so many other influences. You know the influences that I'm talking about. You've set a piece of water, a glass of water in front of a television, and it's taking in all the fear and negativity, and so it doesn't vibrate at the level that it's possible of vibrating. Or we expose it to people who are negative and sending out bad vibes or whatever may have you. That water might not know how wonderful it is. We know from watching that movie, What the Bleep Do You Know, if I send energy to this water and tell it how wonderful it is and thank it for becoming a part of me and all that stuff, how we invigorate and energize the water. So sometimes life applies pressure, which may be considered heat. It applies pressure. And that pressure, you know from your experience, when it comes on the TV or on the radio and it tells you there's a boil alert in the area, that boil alert now tells you that you need to do something to your water to purify it and to make it much better. Sometimes things in your life, in my life, happen in order that I may be better. I don't fight them. I don't fight the fact that, because I know it's there for my own growth. My dad being in the hospital, or the guy who I choose to go out with, things just come to me for my own good, my own growth. I mean, even the bills. I mean, I don't know why did I have to have bills, but some of them caused me to grow, caused me to stretch beyond what I knew was possible, and to do things that I didn't know it was possible for me to do. Children do that for us. Our mates do that for us. Books do that for us. Commitments to being here on time and keeping a schedule do those things for us. It causes us to grow and stretch beyond what we knew before. The classes do that for us. Kids coming to classes, they do that for us. They add dimensions to us that we didn't even know were there. So it grows and expands who we are. And so when we say yes to these things, when we stop fighting it, we know that that fire that comes up is there just simply to burn off all the stuff that is unnecessary, all the stuff that is not good. And so, what you have in the end, if you don't fight the process, is something way more beautiful than it started out to being in the first place. But I'll tell you, when you're in the midst of that fire or the flame, it doesn't feel good. When I'm in the midst of a challenge, it doesn't necessarily feel good. I posted this thing on Facebook because I was thinking the very same thing one day. I was thinking, like, as I'm going toward things, as I'm driving down the street, it's like I may not understand while I'm walking the walk of life. I may not understand just how beautiful it is. But when I look back through the rearview mirror, it's as if everything comes into view. When I'm just looking at a drop of water, I'm not understanding the greatness of water, of H2O. But when I see that ocean, I get real clear about the awesomeness of what it is. I get real clear when I stand out here on Lake Erie, is what I'm closest to. I understand the awesomeness. I understand the vibrational frequency. And I even understand the vibrational frequency of a lake as opposed to an ocean. When we really step into our truth, we appreciate vibrationally much more what we are, who we are, and we appreciate the truth about God. So water is easy. Water is easy for us to outpicture and to see, and then every minute to give thanks. And knowing it's not because we need the water, not because we need to be, the water doesn't need our thanks, but we need to develop our ability to be thankful for it and for what it does for us. Like we need to develop our ability to be thankful to God for all that it is and all that we are in it. And so when we have these little perceptions about our smallness, it is not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are lies in so much bigger. But because we're so caught up in our boundaries and our borders and ourselves, our ego selves of who we think we are, we can't see that bigger picture. Isn't it awesome when we can step back and see the truth about our being, the truth about ourselves? And so even as I sit here and I talk to you, and you're not watching me. I mean, most of you are not watching me. But as I talk to you and I'm sitting here in the heat of Cleveland in June at the end of, I mean, I'm sorry, it's not June yet, it's still May. In this heat, in this room, and I'm talking to you and I feel a droplet of sweat come down my face. I can't sit there and think like, oh my, it's not messing up my makeup. What it is it's saying to me that you know what, no matter what, mm, it's like it seeps out. That water of which I'm a part of, it seeps out. So just like you, it's like this God that you try to contain, that you try to put in on a Sunday, or between the hours of 6 and 7 on a Wednesday night, or 8 and 10 on a Monday. Those things, that Godness seeps out. I mean, you can't even contain it because it is the truth of your being. And so no matter what, it is the call, it is the echo that you hear because it is the truth about you. Oh man, don't you love that? I love it, Dove. I truly love it. So I'm constantly like seeing, no matter what it is, that all of it is this thing that is made up of these pieces, parts, and the parts, like us, may think it's separate and apart, and it's simply doing its job, right? A piece of carpet, a thread in a piece of carpet may think, I'm just playing my part, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, I'm here, I'm standing, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But it doesn't see the bigger picture, the tapestry that we see. A single tree may not see the role that it plays in the entire forest. But without each tree that is there, the forest wouldn't be what it is. You guys, you are among the ministers of God. Ah! And so without you, it would not be, it just simply wouldn't be complete without you and the part that you play. So whatever your part is, no matter what you're doing, um, play your part, play your role, do what it is that you do, do it the best you can. And so as you do that, then it may not be for you to see the bigger picture. Like when I go out there and I plant my seeds in the garden, and I deal with the weeds and I deal with all of this other stuff, I may not see the bigger picture that's at work here. But I tell you, it tastes so good in the end. It tastes so good. And so as I go out there and I nourish it and I give it water and all this stuff, and the water goes into the ground, and that soil and the seed and all that stuff just make love on a level that I don't even know about. And then as it comes up, it gives me this, and it gives me this fruit, whatever it is, if it's a tomato, and it just bursts in my mouth, and it gives me its seed, and I take this seed and I eat it and I swallow it, and it becomes a part of me. It feeds me, it nourishes me, it keeps me moving and going. Everything takes part in everything else, even if you can't see it. It's all a part of the whole, and it's all here on purpose because it's supposed to be. And so you are no different. And you have to play your part. You are a part of this thing. You're not a drop. You're part of the ocean. You're not a seed. You're part of something bigger. And so as we, even I love it when I can bite into something and know that it was probably born just so that it can be a part of me. And then when I flush it down the toilet, it's about to go be a part of something bigger still. It's all in there. It's all part of a system that is here because you're here and because God loves you as itself, and we are one. And guess what, Sandra? I see you. I see you showing up as many people. I see you showing up in many places as many faces, loving me right back because I'm sending love to you, knowing that all it is God at every instance. And because I've chosen the name, or the name Sandra was chosen for me, helper of people, that name was chosen for me, and that's the way I'm resonating. But it makes me no different than you. It makes me no different than God. It makes me no less of who I am because I'm in that awareness. I'm just coming to share my flowers, just like Regis just shared flowers with me, just like Dove just shared a heart with me. I'm just here to share my little piece of the pie. So, yeah, I am. What does that BFN stand for? Regis, bless your heart. I don't know. Does that stand for bless you too? I don't know, but I'm so grateful too. What a wonderful day to be alive, right? What a wonderful universe to be a part of. What a wonderful awareness to know that you may only be the dandruff in the head of God. You may just be a piece of dandruff, or a sail on the on the back of somebody's hand. Who knows what it is, where it is in this universe that we're taking part? All we know is that we're doing so. I'm doing so to the best of my ability. I'm shining forth my light just like you are. And so all of it, yes, all of it is good. All of it is extending God. Isn't that special? It's just awesome. And so, as I'm ending up my little time here, because I know it's almost time for me to go, I'm just so elated that I can recognize. Um, because I'll tell you, so often we're tempted to be sourpusses about the things that go on in life. So often we're tempted to get upset and angry and mad about what we see when somebody turns up the heat, rather than being thankful for it, rather than knowing the truth, that all of us are just here doing what we do until we don't have to anymore, until we recognize the truth. And so, you know what, it's funny. And let me tell you this, because I got maybe 4 minutes left. Let me tell you this. I saw today on TV while I was sitting in the waiting room, there was a thing on television, and they were saying that what restaurant was that just, oh, it was Kellogg's Frosted Flakes had, not Frosted Flakes, I'm sorry, Kellogg's Mini Wheats. People sued Kellogg's Mini Wheats because they said that the commercials gave the image or the idea that if their children ate mini wheats for breakfast, that they would focus better in school and be more intelligent. And so there was a class action suit that was filed against the mini wheats company because it said it didn't make kids more intelligent or smarter. And so then I said, well, what about the tennis shoes that were supposed to make people jump higher or run faster? I mean, do people just go around suing because people have, taken on the perception that that things that that we can do something that adds on to us, or that makes us more. And so it becomes this whole thing of people, like getting the impression that all you've got to do is study the course or become a Christian or do something, and then all of life's problems would disappear. If that were the case, if people would be suing churches left and right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I love you too, Veronica. But people would be searching and suing folks left and right, churches and everybody else, because then they were sitting there thinking like, wow, if I become a Christian, then my life will get easier. Well, guess what? That's you. That's that heat being turned up on the water that you are, to show you and to burn off the impurities that it show you the truth about yourself, and not that you are, this individual drop, but that you're part of something so much greater, and that nothing matter. Remember what you learned in school a long time ago. Matter. Nothing in this universe is either created or destroyed. It simply changes form, not created and not destroyed. It changes form, yes. So the truth about you is that you're still part of the whole. So you, no matter what, as a drop, if you see yourself as a drop of H2O, that H2O is still that same power that is in that huge ocean. You, that drop of God, no matter what name you have placed on yourself, are still part of God. You can't get around it. And so, these things of thinking that you can add something onto yourself, like a religion or something else to add to you, is what? I mean, what? You are already all that you need to be. It is simply the recognition. It is simply the recognition that we need to change our minds. And so, yes, 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 we're deceived by those forms, by those edges that we think are ourselves. I love this. I love this. I love this. And I love you. I love you. I love you. All you Sandras out there, and Veronicas and Doves and Melindas and Regis and Lemon Drops and Dewdrops and Lynn and everything, everything, everything that is God. I am just having a love affair with it. And so it's time for me to go make room for Veronica. Oh my God, bless your heart. Thank you, Dove. Yes, it's sandrasetta.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Sam Bishop. I'm streaming over Ustream. I actually recorded this at some point, starting at some point. I didn't get all of it, but I did record it. So you guys, I will see you here again next Monday. So continue to keep us lifted in your prayers. And I just appreciate it, knowing that, oh man, this allness, no matter what form it takes, is wonderful and is purposeful, and it is what it is. So I love y'all, and I shall see you soon. All right, so with that, I'm releasing the mic. Bye.